Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we are diving into a genuinely massive development in global defense tech. We're looking at a huge leap that was just unveiled over in Istanbul. We are talking about the Yıldırımhan, officially revealed as Turkey's very first intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, if you follow defense trends at all, you know how incredibly rare it is for a new country to step into the ICBM arena. It's a massive, massive technological and geopolitical milestone. So today, we're going to break down exactly what this new system is, take a close look at those highly anticipated technical specs, and figure out where it fits into this rapidly shifting landscape of modern military power. Get ready, because the pace of innovation we're seeing here is truly breathtaking.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll meet the Yıldırımhan. Second, check out the technical specs. Third, look at Turkey's broader missile arsenal. Fourth, discuss treaties and constraints. And finally, number 5, we'll zoom out to the overall ICBM landscape.
All right, part 1. Meet the Yıldırımhan Missile, a historic reveal.
Okay, let's dive right into it. This setting was the Saha 2026 Defense Expo in Istanbul. Now, defense expos happen literally all the time, right? But the vibe on day one of this event was just electric. Why? Because the National Defense Ministry R&D Center completely caught the world off guard. They pulled the curtain back on the Yıldırımhan, Turkey's very first intercontinental ballistic missile. And look, announcing an ICBM is definitely not your average Tuesday in the defense world. It is a huge, undeniable declaration of sovereign engineering capability.
And what's super fascinating here is the physical design itself. It's not just a big piece of metal. It is practically dripping with cultural symbolism. On one side of the missile, you've got the Tugra, the official seal of Ottoman Sultan Yıldırım Bayezid. That's a direct nod to centuries of imperial history. But then, right there on the nose, you've got the signature of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the modern Turkish Republic. It's this really striking dual design, physically bridging the ancient Ottoman past with the cutting-edge tech of the modern republic, right on the nose of their most advanced weapon.
Moving on to Section 2, Under the Hood, Technical Specs.
So what are we actually dealing with here? Well, during the press release, Defense Minister Yaşar Güler dropped an absolutely massive number, 25 Mach. He confirmed this is Turkey's longest-range missile to date, and crucially, their first liquid-fueled hypersonic cruising munition. Now, 25 times the speed of sound is almost hard to wrap your head around. To put that into perspective, at Mach 25, you could literally cross the Atlantic from New York to London in about 15 minutes. At those extreme hypersonic speeds, modern defense systems basically have zero time to react.
Along with that wild speed, the specs they released at the Expo are highly specific. The crucial point is that staggering range, 6,000 kilometers. It hits that distance using 4 distinct rocket motors, and as Minister Güler highlighted, it uses liquid fuel. Specifically, liquid nitrogen tetroxide. This is a super potent oxidizer, commonly used in aerospace and rocketry. So, reading between the lines, this points to a seriously sophisticated propulsion engineering program operating behind the scenes.
All right, Section 3. Turkey's broader missile arsenal.
Now, to really understand this, we need to zoom out a bit. A weapon like this doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. Turkey's defense industry has been making major headlines lately, mostly with drones and autonomous systems, but they've clearly been laser-focused on long-range munitions too. Just look back to July 2025 at the IDEF Expo. The defense company Roketsan showed off the Typhoon Block 4. This was a 10-meter, 7,200-kilogram beast of a missile. At the time, which was just over a year ago, remember, it was hailed as Turkey's absolute longest-range domestic missile, estimated to hit about 1,000 kilometers.
And this perfectly illustrates the insane leap we're talking about today. You've got the Typhoon Block 4 at an estimated 1,000 kilometers. Then you have Roketsan's Çank missile, pushing 2,000 kilometers. And then, boom. The Yıldırımhan just completely dwarfs them both, with a stated range of 6,000 kilometers. Jumping from a 1,000 or 2,000 kilometer limit to 6,000 in such a compressed time frame, that is a massive geometric leap in engineering and telemetry capabilities for the country.
Which brings us to Section 4, Treaties and Global Constraints.
Of course, you can't just build these things in a vacuum. The production, and especially the export, of long-range missiles are locked down by a tangled web of international treaties. And it's pretty obvious why these rules are so strictly enforced. Just look at the news. Since 2022, Russia has been extensively using medium-range ballistic missiles in Ukraine. More recently, we've seen Iran launch medium and long-range ballistic missiles toward Israel. These aren't theoretical concepts. They are active weapons shaping modern conflicts. And that is exactly why the global community watches the development of new delivery systems with extreme scrutiny.
Now, what's really interesting here is how countries actually navigate all this scrutiny. According to defense experts, it is practically an unspoken rule in the military world to intentionally underreport the maximum ranges of these weapon systems. Why do they do that? Simply put, crossing certain thresholds can trigger harsh sanctions tied to those international treaties. So when a country officially claims a 6,000-kilometer range, military analysts almost always assume the true physical limit of the missile stretches a whole lot further than what they're admitting publicly.
Let's bring it all home with Section 5, Understanding the ICBM Landscape. We've been throwing the term ICBM around a lot, but let's get perfectly clear on what that actually means. An intercontinental ballistic missile is exactly what it sounds like, a weapon designed to hit targets across literal continents. But the really terrifying part is the payload. Modern ICBMs can carry multiple independent warheads. Basically, one missile goes up into space and then releases several separate warheads that maneuver to hit entirely different targets all at the exact same time. And yeah, we usually associate them with nuclear payloads, but they can absolutely pack massive conventional explosives too.
Because that kind of power is just staggering, the list of countries that actually have it is incredibly short. At the top tier, you've got Russia, the US, and China with massive arsenals. Then you have a small secondary group with limited land or sub-launch capabilities, countries like the UK, France, India, North Korea, Israel, and Iran. That's it. That is the highly exclusive, heavily monitored global club that Turkey is stepping right into with the Yildirim program.
The strict dividing line between a standard ballistic missile and an ICBM is simply the distance. Normal ballistic missiles operate anywhere from 300 up to about 5,500 kilometers. The second you cross that 5,500 mark, you are officially classified as intercontinental. Some of the craziest ones go well beyond 10,000 kilometers. So when Turkey comes out and announces the Yildirimhan at a flat 6,000 kilometers, they are deliberately pushing right over that defining line, formally putting themselves on the board as an ICBM power. So, what does this all mean for us? For decades, intercontinental strike capability was basically locked down by a tiny handful of superpowers. But as Turkey's rapid domestic development shows us, that barrier to entry is shifting. As more nations figure out how to build these weapons entirely on their own, completely bypassing traditional global export constraints, we really have to ask, how is this new era of accessible ICBM tech going to permanently alter the global balance of power? It's a massive, complex reality, and one we absolutely need to keep our eyes on. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it helps structure your understanding of this huge geopolitical shift. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.